We got CEO Alex Rawson from Odyssey. Everybody knows Alex, and those headphones have been, really taking the market by storm. We introduced them in, I guess it's year 2009, when the first product came out. He's really made a real big impact. All right, we got Dan Clark, who's of Alpha Dog fame. He's really doing a tremendous job. All right, on modifying the Force-X headphone, and he's kind of made it his own. And he's doing a terrific job in the community with getting that out there. It's an outstanding product. We've got Fong Beyond, a good friend. Everybody knows Fong. All right, I guess he's been around Headphone since about 2006. And he's really done so much for this community with all the different types of products that he's brought out. And introduce some really good products at very, very decent prices. They make everything affordable for everybody. So a warm welcome for my friend Fong. And we got Louis Flores, who's been doing a great job, also modifying what LFF is known in the Headphone community. All right, he also has Paradox Audio. It's the creator of a couple of different headphones, and hopefully as the Paradox in the Enigma, am I pronouncing that correct? Enigma, okay. Headphone, which I've heard is on Alex Cavalli's table. If you want to listen to it, it's really a nice sounding headphone. So that's our panel today. That's the panel. Then we've got on the end there, all right, the always colorful Tyle Hurstons. All right, Tyle, basically a lot of people in the industry of what you see today in Headphone owe a lot to Tyle, because Tyle, started Headroom when nobody else was really interested in headphones or headphone amplifiers. Tyle got a little bit tired of listening to garbage on airplanes, created a headphone amplifier, and Headroom was born. So I think we owe a lot to Tyle for the industry and where it's come to be. So you're right there, my brother. All right. I had sent out some questions, all right, prior to this with emails, but I'm just going to give them out real quickly so everybody knows the questions that we're going to ask. And the way I set this up, it's going to be more informal. All right, everybody's going to get a question to answer regarding Planar headphones, and then I want to make it a really good open question and answer session of where Planar headphones are going, all right, how they're going to develop in the future of the marketplace, because right now I think when you look at the whole dynamic picture, it's a big selling feature, and many people are buying Planar headphones, so that's what we're going to work on today. All right, so basically the first question, all right, that we're going to ask is where is the future of Planar technology as it relates to the consumer and the industry? Alex, you want to take a little crack at that a little bit? And let me know what you think.
Sure. Well, I'll preface it. Thanks for having me. I'll preface it with just basically how much I can actually talk about, or what I foresee the future could be. Some of the things I think the future of Planar technology as it relates to consumer in the industry would be material science advancements. First off, the more we advance in our materials, the better performance we're going to get, no matter what. As to how that relates to a consumer, as we advance these materials, our weight will get down, our comfort will be weight will get down, comfort will become much more tolerable. As far as you guys know, Planar headphones are often a bit heavier than others. Other than that, I can see dual diaphragm headphones with multiple uses, magnetic structures becoming more efficient. But as far as the future of Planar technology, I think it's not just Planar, I think it's just headphones in general. So it's hard for me to break those up. Future of headphones, I see a lot of wearable technology, virtual reality, augmented reality, gaming, really immersive technology. So hopefully Planars will be involved in that, but that's where I see the future of headphones, if you will.
Dan, you want to take a
So I think pretty much everything that Alex said I would second. The other thing that I'd probably add into it is that I think there's a trend toward an increasing diversity of design platforms in the headphone industry. People are coming up with more and more different shapes and sizes, more and more different ways to basically fit the drivers into enclosures that have different ergonomics and ways of resting on ear, around ear, in ear. And I think planar as well as dynamic or even electrostatic technologies are all probably converging toward a broader diversity of deployment. So it's not always going to be a planar is going to be a large circumaural headphone. You know, people are going to come up with on-ear designs and other ways of doing it that will fit different applications, lifestyle needs, performance requirements for associated equipment like amplifiers, etc. And I think that's really a good and healthy thing because there isn't a single model that says here's how you're supposed to wear a headphone. And a lot of the planars, because of the nature of the technology and where we've come from, have focused so far on really the larger circumaural designs.
Lois, what do you think is the technology's going?
I would have to agree with Alex. I think you have to focus on the materials mainly because the technology's been there for quite a while. You know, anyone who's in headphones and has read Headphone or the many other forums that are out there knows that this is old technology that's been around since the 60s and 70s. So I think the main advancement is going to be in weight distribution and in materials, mainly magnets and maybe coatings of the diaphragm. That's where I see most of that going at least.
Fong?
Hi. In my understanding, the planar driver headphones are something very different from the traditional dynamic headphones. For the dynamic headphones, we have the coil, and the shape of the magnets is totally different from the planar headphones. So the efficiency of planar driver headphones is very low comparing to the dynamic headphones. If they use same amount of the magnets. So for sure, what Alex said, the material science will dramatically improve the planar driver technology. However, at the same time, the mechanical design is for the driver is also very important, and because different materials have different characters, different properties, and you need to do a lot of work in the lab to improve the structure so that you can use the structure to apply the different materials. This sometimes is even more important because everybody right now is using the neodymium magnets. They use the same thing. I don't think in the near future this situation will change.
Okay. Todd, a question for you on the end over there, because you've been doing this a lot longer than I have as far as with the headphones. What have you seen through the years of differences in the technology with headphones, with planar headphones? I mean,
well, I think headphones in general are still very early on, and I think they're, as these guys are saying, there's a lot of work yet to do technically on the materials and really understanding what's possible in there, so I think I'm not sure there's a lot of room for growth and opportunity in the broader public right now, just because of the difficulties of planar magnetic headphone size, weight, and so on and so forth. But I think there's a lot of growth that is available near term in terms of how good these planar magnetic headphones can sound as these guys work through because we're still very early on in optimizing this kind of headphone, and so I think there's a lot of ground that's going to be gained rather quickly because of these guys' work.
And what I'm going to say is, Fong, basically you've got a new headphone that's on the market now that is probably the lightest one on there. So is there room to make a smaller, as Dan was talking about, I'm getting off the questions that I've asked, so I'm a little off base with this. because we're seeing more and more people walking around with portable audio. Can we develop something, or does the industry in general think that there's a room to put a product out to work with the portable digital players that are coming out, the portable amplifiers, and that type of scenario? And I'd like some opinions on that.
Well, it's a very interesting trend right now. There are more and more portable stuff, portable players, portable amplifiers coming, and people like to listen to the headphones on the street. So for the Planar driver headphones, the challenge is first the efficiency. Efficiency is much lower comparing to the dynamic or onto driver in the ears. Also, normally the Planar driver headphones is open design, so the noise canceling or noise isolation is another problem. However, for everything actually is all the issues they point to the total mass, the weight of the driver. If we can figure out a way to cut down the weight of the driver, or more directly, we can use less magnets in the headphones, we're gonna do it. Make it small, make it noise canceling, make it be popular on the street. That is something in the next several years, there's a main work for all of us.
What do you feel about that? You think that, I see it as a big part of where this community is going.
I think there's definitely potential in doing that. The problem, like you said, is the weight. It's been done before. There are portable orthos out there. They're just not well known. And then you're looking at paying quite a bit of money for a portable ortho that you can invest maybe in a custom IM. It gives you similar performance, if not better performance, better isolation. It's more efficient. So, the way I see it is there's a time and place for everything, and it just depends what you want to own.
Maybe you can help us with this a little bit too, because Stax has done it with a portable, small electrostatic with an amplifier, and I'm saying that this could be more viable if we can get something that's good sounding in a small capacity. You think it would sell well?
I think anything that sounds good is going to sell well as long as it meets the physical requirements. And I would go further to say that the Oppo PM1, although it may not be for everybody because of its kind of honey dripper nature, which I personally kind of like, but it's a very efficient planar magnetic headphone, relatively light, right? It's not sealed, but it's good. It's definitely doable, and it is, in my opinion, it's pretty much been done with the PM1 in terms of making things substantially lighter.
Alex, one of the things that we're talking about, and Oppo's name just came up, Tal brought that up, and that's a good point. It's, I just reviewed that for high fidelity, and it's a 102 dB. I brought it here, and it's an open headphone. That's the only disadvantage. If it was closed, I think it would be tremendous, because you can drive it with a portable amplifier very easily. I mean, it's very easy to drive, and it sounds very good. It's a very good, and I think there's a huge market for it. Alex, do you see anything like that coming from your company? Can you do something like that?
Absolutely. We're working on a lot of things right now, especially something like that. One of the things I'm trying to work with is with the mobile, with the cell phone manufacturers. I mean, bottom line, we're here because mobile boomed.
Yep.
That's where it's all going. That's where people are going to ingest and listen to most of their music. So until our technology catches up with efficiencies, it'd be nice to see some of the manufacturers of cell phones beef up their phones a bit, allow for high-res playback, etc.
Right. Well, that's going to be an interesting thing to get them to do that. But because I'm noticing some of the players that are coming out on the DAP markets right now are Android platforms with built-in better amplifiers that are going to, basically, you don't even need a standalone if you have an efficiency headphone that you can play on there portable. And Oppo's really, pioneered the way with this as a portable planar to do that. And if it's closed, and I know they're working on a closed headphone, I think that would be one of the biggest selling type of products on the market if anybody can put that together, because I think they sound great. I mean, it sounds, if you could put something to get close to the sound of a high quality IEM such as Jerry Harvey's designs or Ultimate Ears in a Planar design, and it's closed, I think it could be really a very viable product. Dan, your feelings on that?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting in a sense. It's a little bit of back to the future, because one of the older planers, for example, the Yamaha, I think the YP1, was a on-ear small headphone, lightweight, easy to travel with. But I think in the day there wasn't anything you could travel with that could ride it.
They didn't have any products to put the thing into.
So we're in a sense, we're back to the future now with a little bit more knowledge of the materials, the better magnet structures, stronger magnet structures, different ways to lay out and design the driver itself that will make that type of thing possible for the future. And then what you get into is really the complexities of how you actually build closed headphones that sound good. That's, I think that one is self-evident, that's an area that the whole market has had not great success in the past, because there are so few closed headphones that actually really sound
good,
that can deliver.
Sure, absolutely.
One of the other areas of growth is just improving planar magnetic headphones in terms of their high-end response. So in other words, competing against Stax headphones or Sennheiser HC800. So the question is, planars are already there in that space. Now the question is there significantly more room to improve planar magnetic technology to make them a way better high-end headphone? I'd be interested in how much room these guys think there's there.
Sure, answer that. It's a good question.
I think there's a lot of room. It's almost infinite to me. It all depends on materials, for me.
So a great car analogy that I think answers that question is power to weight ratio. It's not so much that the planars have a inherent advantage because the driver's lower mass. It's that they have a inherent advantage because the motive force compared to the mass ratio is better. But as we get more efficient with our planar technologies and we can overcome that, I think that the potential to have performance that meets or exceeds electrostatic exists.
For me, it's kind of a mixed bag. I'd rather they not get any brighter than they currently are. I think right now, most of the available planar magnetics are at a sweet spot for me personally. But I think they can be improved. What the user wants is more high-end. Given the right materials, right dampening, the right structure of the enclosure, you can get more high-end, definitely.
I think there are a lot of rooms for to apply the planar technology to the high-end market. Actually, I can see with the developing of the planar driver headphones, there is less room for the electrostatics. The reason is that the diaphragm, all the mechanical structures are so similar to the electrostatics, and also the hi-fi may have already used the thinner diaphragm than the electrostatics. So for example, the high frequency response, there's no big difference from the electrostatics. So I think those two categories, the planar driver headphones and the electrostatic headphones, those two categories, they will, planar might win in the end, but it will depend on how the material science or the structure research, the building the drivers better. In other words, for the electrostatics, you don't have any other choice. You just two plays on both sides, right? You might improve the material to build the diaphragm, but there's no significant difference. It's all about the resistors ratio on the surface of the electrostatic diaphragm. But for the planar driver headphones, the material science can improve the conductor trace on the surface of diaphragm. We can improve the magnet field. Also, there are a lot of work, there are a lot of trick know-hows about how to modify the structures. So I think I'm positive on the planar side, although we're still working on the electrostatic. Thank you.
Okay, one of the other questions I have, all right, and one of the other questions I have is that basically price is always a factor for some. So do you guys feel that we could put a product out in a portable type of market at a lower price point, okay, than we currently are? You know, and I don't know if Todd would agree with me on this or not, but if you can get something out there in the under $500 category, I think you would bring more people into Planar technology and set them up for the upper end. What are your feelings? Can that be done? I know Fong has done some stuff in a full-size headphone. For what, $399? You had the 400 out. And that was one of your biggest sellers, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we actually there are a lot of big sellers.
Right. Right. So what I'm saying is that can that be done? Can we see more in the future of a lower priced headphone coming into the market with Planar technology?
I think the affordable price for the planar driver headphones is very important. The regular right now the planar driver headphones are limited in the high end because we have to use a lot of very expensive magnets. The diaphragm treatment is very difficult to make, so it will be difficult to improve the volume. However, I think according to our experience with the HE400, I think our factory can maintain that volume, and at the same time, it is possible to figure out a way to use much less magnet in the driver. So I think it's going to be the affordable planar driver headphones has already been there, like our HE400, and in the future there are going to be more and more affordable headphones coming out.
I think, like all things, as time progresses and technology gets better, they will get more efficient, cheaper, lighter. But where we're at that time, seeing how expensive the magnets are that we use, even tweaking the diaphragm tends to be expensive. I think we have a ways to go, but I think it will definitely get there to where there'll be definitely under $500, especially for the portable market.
To answer your question, yes, I think it's possible, and we're doing everything we can to lower the cost and pass that along to the consumers.
From our perspective, we already have two products under the $500 mark already. And those were because we were able to leverage a commodity production platform that Fostex had been building around for 20 so years. And the reason they were successful at doing that is they used small magnets, which weren't the highest possible power levels, but the compromise is that it's not terribly efficient. And so one of the things that you have to deal with in this is that the price of magnets basically go up exponentially as your flux increases, and therefore efficiency is kind of the enemy of weight and price. And so you're always having to kind of pick 2 out of 3.
And even on that, managing the inventory, buying magnets at a certain time where the market is safe to buy, because the magnet prices go up and down and can be a serious fluctuation.
And as far as what's going on in the industry itself, you basically have, there's just a handful of you guys making Planar headphones. All right, so you guys are really, the driving force of where we're going in the future with this. Now you had Oppo coming into the market as another company. Do you guys see other companies starting to get into Planar headphones again? Companies like, Sony, Yamaha, Sennheiser. I know Biodynamic, I've never heard any rumors of any of them. I know Sennheiser has had those rumors floating around again about electrostatic headphones, but nothing about a Planar. But do you see them starting to get into the market with us?
I don't know. I think it's a big risk for companies like that. I'm not sure if they want to take that risk, but it would be welcome.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Dan, you feel the same way about that?
You know, I tend to focus less on the technology per se than the outcome.
Right.
And there are a lot of ways to design products that are going to meet specific market needs for function, sound quality, performance, or style. I personally have learned to love the planars because they do something organic with the sound when they're properly done that other technologies just don't do for me, even electrostatic. You know, I don't prefer the detail of electrostatics to the kind of organic tone of the better orthos.
Right.
And so I think that's a design and a sound and a voicing decision that companies have to make. And you know, a lot of times the planars don't have the gee whiz V-curve response that a lot of the market does want. And if I were a really big company trying to sell as many headphones as possible, I would probably be more focused on a formula that would be tried and true.
Right, which
you know,
is the dynamic.
which is a dynamic, or you know, and a kind of voicing, and planars aren't necessarily the best solution for that.
Okay, so as far as maybe Tal can help me with this a little bit. As far as Tal, what you've seen through the years, as far as what's going on in the industry. So where's the future that you think that the Planar headphones lie? Which is a good question.
You've led me into one of the things I wanted to say here. I think that one of the interesting things about the PM1 is that there was a lot of research and it's a very novel design, whereas most of these guys are using linear bar magnets and so on and so forth. And one of the things that I think is that there's room to, if you get out of the box, to really investigate some novel things in planar magnetic headphones in terms of the circuit diagram on the diaphragm and in terms of the magnet structure. And I'm going to give you two quick instances and try to push these guys out of the box here a little bit. One is, everybody know what an isobaric driver is? Yeah. Everybody know? It's where you have two drivers, one behind another, and it's sealed in between. And you can put a subwoofer in an enclosure that in a smaller enclosure than it needs, because you have the two drivers working together and the rear driver takes up the problems of the space, but the front driver acts better, right? So on a planar magnetic headphone, all you have to do is add another layer of magnets and put a second diaphragm in there, and you can make an isobaric driver out of a planar magnetic headphone fairly quickly, and then you might be able to seal the back of the headphone because the front diaphragm is not being affected as much by the rear housing. Right. All right, so that's one thing that's novel, right? And another one is, everybody know what quadratic residue diffractors is?
Everybody.
Yeah, so that's in recording studios, those things that look like skylines to diffract sound. Well, what if you made 3D printed a grid that's like a three-dimensional quadratic residue diffractor and stuck it in front of the driver to get rid of some of the resonance problems because of the focus and directivity of the plane on there. So my point is that I think there's room in, especially in planar magnetic headphones, to do some really unusual things and get out of the box and make them even higher end sound. So I'm curious to see if these guys are, how far out of the box, and of course they can't say, but how far out of the box are they thinking in terms of magnetic structures and diaphragms and circuits?
Sure. Alex?
I can't really say, but I can't see the box anymore.
Boxes? We don't need no boxes.
You don't need no stinking box.
All right.
It's hard to say. I really don't know.
All right, yeah, Tyler, you got into some really, I know you got that from talking to, was it Igor that?
No, I had these ideas
long before. Yeah. Basically, I know you have you heard the new Oppo design that he's referring to, which is a different, with efficiency. I think that's where you're going with it. Do you think there's something?
to make them even better sound.
All right, so with using that type of a technology, or any kind of tech, so I guess what you're asking them then, is there anything different that you guys are working on?
I'm asking them to spill their guts, and obviously they know they can't.
Well,
They don't want to talk here. We got some competitors up here too.
Well, I think there should be more different approach to improve the sound qualities. For example, Tile asked us to add another layer of magnets in the drivers, which is going to make the headphones even heavier.
Right.
And all of us don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
So the question is to get lighter and smaller and...
So for example, right now I'm working on the graphene technology, trying to apply that into the diaphragm.
What's it called?
The graphene.
Graphene.
What is that exactly? For the people that are not so technical minded like myself.
Graphene is a mono layer of carbon atoms, which is very strong, very strong and is conductive. It might be material for the future.
Okay.
Yeah, graphene is a single layer of carbon atoms that's tightly packed and arranged, and has the advantage of good conductivity, and it's flexible as well.
Okay.
And I really think that's a feature of headphones.
Where it's
not
gonna go.
necessarily, isodynamic as we know them now. It's going to be in graphene.
Yeah, I see Mr. Rawson shaking his head over there, so, I don't know if we're working on that, but like I said, different.
It's really back to the materials. So yes, we're looking at all the different materials that are coming out. It's just, they're so expensive. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be a few years, and the manufacturers of these materials are going to milk it as long as they can. So it's very expensive.
Right. So
I think there's one other thing to keep in mind with something like graphene. Graphene is a material that must be deposited on a substrate, and therefore the substrate still exists. And you have the issue of how conductive it will be with the thinness that it is. That'll ultimately determine what kind of circuit topologies you have and what kind of efficiencies you can get out of it. And it's not clear from the research that I've done on it yet that you can actually get the right balance of impedance and efficiency that would make sense with that material. However, that material might also be amazingly effective for electrostatics, because it can be applied in a very thin layer, and all it has to do there is be a charged surface. So the thinness and the conductivity don't matter at all.
Right. But with an electrostatic, wouldn't you still have the efficiency problem with driving it, for a different type of market?
Yeah.
So
it doesn't change the way the electrostatic will behave.
It's still
it just
going to be
changes the
difficult to
making.
drive.
That's right. It's just
Right.
a different type of coating surface to put on the substrate.
Right. But I think with the technology that I've seen with some planar technology from the early days of Magna Planar and in the speaker world and everything else, what I'm starting to see is that it's becoming more efficient. It's becoming easier to drive, and that's why I'm excited about it, because I think that there is a future down the line that we can get more efficient with it. And Oppo's showing us that they just did that. I know Fong's is lighter than probably any other headphone that's on the market right now, and from the prototype that I had. So it's some really exciting. So where do you guys, what's the next step? I think that's what everybody wants to hear. They want to dig into your heads a little bit. I can ask all the questions, but maybe we should let them start asking you guys some questions to see where they're at as far as the clients. So Warren, if you want to grab this microphone.
Well, I mean, just whoever.
All right, is
I
anybody?
actually have a question before it goes around.
All right, so let's start asking some of the things and see if we can get this to more of an open discussion.
My question is this: let's say I just really did the planar sound, right? And I want to take it out of the world of huge ass headphones. How small can these things get, and how far out is that? When am I going to be able to buy something that a normal person would consider a portable planar? Like an on-ear.
Like earbuds, like the baby stacks.
Well, you can get even smaller than that. I mean, how far out are these things away from being purchased? Like, how long do I have to wait, essentially, to buy something that isn't humongous?
Depends on the effort. As far as, I mean, I can't, I'm just speculating right now, but I'd say 2 years.
You know, if you were looking for an on-ear or something smaller like that, it's probably less time. If you're looking for in-ears, there's a lot of work to be done on that front. You know, I've actually done some research on that, and it's a non-trivial problem.
I was referring to the baby sticks, like in-ears, but smaller version, much less time.
How long do you have to wait? Honestly, none. Just go on eBay. There's old portables you can buy. Dan mentioned one of them, the YH. I think the YHD1. There's a few that were made by. No, it was by Yamaha. Yamaha released. There was, it's based on the same magnet, I believe. So there are some that you can get right now, and given the new technology with the new players that are out there, the new iPods, they sound great. I mean, they're out there as is right now. It's just nobody's picked that up and pushed it further. You know, getting drivers that size is difficult now, and it's expensive. And there's new materials that you can use to, you know, possibly make them more efficient. It's just a matter of getting it at the right price and putting it out at the right price. So you really don't have to wait for on-ears. For in-ears, we'll see. Maybe, you know, defer to Alex's answer of 2 years or hopefully less. We'll see.
Well, if you're looking for something to be used, portable stuff, also is below $500. You will be able to get it in full-size version next month.
Okay.
And then please follow our 400i. And also the on-ear will be available hopefully in this year.
Okay.
So that's it. Anybody else got a question for these guys up here? Michael?
Well, I was just going to ask, you were talking about, you know, improving Planar to be truly out of the box. I mean, as you know, but not many people know, I come, even though I'm young, from the high-end channel world, and the reason why I jumped so much first in personal audio is because my first experience with Odyssey headphones, Dan's, phones as well. To me, they are out of the box, and they cancel out a lot of the room issues, and, you know, coming from also the studio world, where you're dealing with, you know, you have to have a room that's acoustically treated, you know, so that basically the goal, right, of any hi-fi system is to take away all the bullshit between you and the transducer. So for me, you're out of the box. So what I'm looking for, you know, first was, I had a Planar that was closed that sounded open, and I think Alex and Dan have both achieved that, you know, absolutely. So all I'm looking for is, like Warren said, more size and form factor, and I know they're not that far off. I just know they're not, because I know these guys they're all innovating and doing what they're doing, and the reason why they're speculating is because they're working very hard in their lab. So I'll ask a simple question. How important, I know most of you guys probably go from the design first to ergonomics next, right? No?
You talk about the design first? And
Yeah, I mean the design concept and ergonomics and looking at everything after. Right? So you come up with your design. Or you take it all into account when you're designing the Planar.
I think the ergonomic is a very important issue next to the sound quality. And to paint it beautiful is not as important as sound quality and ergonomics.
The way I approach every single headphone I've made is sound first. You know, I come from a studio background. I've been doing mastering and sound restoration for, you know, close to over 15 years now. So when I approach a headphone, it's, like you said, can I be out of the box? Does it sound like my studio speakers when I listen to them? Am I getting that detail? Can I hear the things that I need to hear to restore, you know, a 1930s, you know, soundtrack? So my approach has always been the sound comes first. And then once I get the sound right, then I figure out, can I wear it for 8 hours a day or more without getting a headache, without, you know, getting a crink in my neck? So Ergonomics comes second to me, only the sound. So once I get the sound, it's a matter of making it as comfortable as I can, and then looks come, last, and they don't really matter to me. To me, it's sound and comfort.
I don't know if someone else has a question, but I would expand on it if someone else does.
Yeah, we take a little bit of a different approach to it, which is that we actually work to design our products with a notion of figuring out what we want to accomplish with the product. And that's a total view of it. We don't just say the sonic profile has to be this and then see what happens. What we look to do is create a specific type of solution that will have a combination of the right sound, the right comfort, and the right price point. And those things are all interrelated, and choices you make about the physical form will affect the sound, and choices you want to make about the sound may affect the physical form. So, for us, it's an iterative process where all those things, including the price point and the manufacturing process, all have to be reviewed at every step of it. And we go through many, many, many iterations. And ironically, that was what brought us to using 3D printing for production instead of just a prototyping tool. Was we were doing all this iterative design work as we were trying to come up with a next generation enclosure design, and we began to notice that the product sounded better than the mathematics indicated it should. And so we started doing research, and we learned a few things about what the 3D printers were doing, and then we began to modify the design process to optimize the acoustic performance based on what 3D printers allowed us to do to the actual physical part. And that changed the aesthetics, and then we had to kind of iterate around, and it went through probably 20 different iterations to be able to get it right.
Hey Dan. I gotta say, designing headphones is not easy. Yeah, regardless, you only have so much to work with. So what we do is we design our driver first. We design the restrictions around that driver, and then we're designing the enclosures around that. So it's really sound quality first, what's going to perform the best, and then build around it, which you only have so much room to do, and there's only so much you can do. So that's why for our headphones, and I think a few up here, there's very just functional design. There's no frills, it's just simple and built for performance.
Hold on.
There's a lot of talk here about making on-ear and in-ear planar magnetic designs, and I'm wondering if there's actually a need. I mean, what's wrong with a dynamic driver? And so the question is, what do planar magnetics really do well, and what directions does that need to go because traditional dynamic drivers don't cut it in some way?
So actually, I think that's a really interesting question. I think that the biggest objection technically that I've ever had with dynamic drivers was one that I had when I was designing speakers, which is that effectively you're taking a very small area and using that to drive a very large area. In other words, the motive force is concentrated around where the voice coil actually attaches to the driver membrane. And that is just a recipe for wave propagation through the material, breakup modalities, and different kinds of distortions. And while it's cheap to make and it's easy to make, it's not necessarily the most linear and the lowest distortion approach to things. And I think, to me, when you have that uniform drive force that you get with electrostatics and planars, and you're really moving the whole material in a linear way, it just is conducive to a lower distortion and a more organic sound. And so if we can take that technology and apply it in novel applications, I think there's going to be a discernible audible difference.
I totally agree that for sound quality wise, the moving cone structure, we call them dynamic, have their limit. So the sound wave to redo a sound wave is the kind of thing that only God can do that, which is to produce a part of our work. Nobody can do that, but God can do that. So we are doing something which is not doable. So for the closest mimic to the sound wave is to make a simple harmonic vibrator. But the moving cone structure will never do it because the coil and the magnets are so small. There's only one small point on a big horn. The diaphragm on the dynamic driver is a huge horn, but only one point of that horn is moving. So it will automatically adding the distortion to the sound wave that produced. Nothing can, for the dynamic categories, nothing can not doing that, including the expensive HDL. That is why the inner fidelity, I'll measure a whole bunch of headphones. The planar driver headphones, these are totally different from the dynamic headphones. So I think our job is to reproduce the sound wave. We are doing something that God is doing. The planar driver headphones can do better than the dynamic. I think the future is to make the planar driver headphones sound better than dynamics, but it can be applied to any kind of headphones and speaker systems. It sounds better.
Anybody else got anything for these guys up here as far as questions? Michael, get another one?
I both know, his outreach into the pro world has been fantastic. Like, he also comes from that world. That's why, working at Atlantic for many years. And the engineers I've got him to, like, Frank Petty, for example, who hated headphones. Literally, when I told him you got to hear me, he hated them. Now he's told me him hearing reference. He doesn't leave anywhere without his LCD access. My question is, you come from that background, for them obviously it be sound quality first, ergonomics next. Are you, or any of you, gonna have Planars aim at pro and aim at consumer, or do you think they translate well?
Dan?
Well, I'm not as deeply versed in the studios as Alex or Louis. I have worked with a couple, and I found it really interesting because it broke down into different processes that made sense to use different types of headphones for different parts of the process. For example, Guy Charbonneau, who has a mobile recording studio, and he does the sound work for Coachella, for the main stage and stuff, in this big 18-wheeler he has where he's got a whole full-blown recording studio in the back of it. His favorite headphone for setting up miking on a drum kit is a Sony MDR V6, and he won't use anything else. But when he actually wants to do post-production work, then he's looking for something that's more linear and accurate, and he helped us with the voicing on our headphones for just that reason. And he sat there with doing parametric equalization, and he was like, okay, yeah, this is where it is now. And once he had it dialed into what he exactly wanted, then he used it for mastering work. And for him, being able to get something that was very linear at that phase made sense, and we were a good fit. So I think it's often that there are special applications that may dictate whether what type of sound's going to be appropriate, what type of form or function also.
Alex, I know you're into the pro markets right now, so.
Eventually we'll have models targeted at pro or pro use, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, we're working on pro, we're working on luxury, whatever you want to call these different segments. I don't know if there is much of a difference. I think, if you're making a DJ headphone, yes, there's going to be a difference. You need to have certain functions there. Somebody who's a mastering engineer, you need to have long listening sessions, so it's got to be comfortable. For travel, it's got to be light, and portable, and fold, and all that stuff. So all these different applications could use similar drivers and have very similar performance and have different ergonomics. So I'm not sure if
there will be differences as far as performance goes, but ergonomics, yes.
Huh?
All this stuff. I think there are some different requirements between the pro audio and the hi-fi category. The reason is that for all the recorders, for all the audio, we call people who work in the studios, when they want to record music, their distance between their microphone to the instrument is much shorter, is much closer, comparing to the audience sitting in the concert. So the different distance makes very different sound signature, because the high frequency will be cutting down for longer distance, and the bass will have much less. You will lose much less bass comparing to high frequency. So that is why for the hi-fi headphones, the headphones normally are much darker comparing to the pro audio stuff. So I'm not sure if Hi-Fi Man will get into the pro audio business, but if we make something which is very bright, then it might ruin the reputation in the hi-fi market. So
It wouldn't need to be bright, it would be pro. What do you think, Frank?
My first headphone that I made was strictly pro audio based. I mean, like I said, I've been mastering and doing sound restoration for quite a while, so my headphones are strictly aimed at having a linear sound, being neutral, basically not sounding like anything. I don't distinguish between having a mastering type headphone and having a consumer type headphone. I would prefer that consumers have a linear headphone. That way we might get better recordings. Because some classical recordings are so badly mastered that people can't tell, because some consumer products are way too bright or way too dark. If all consumers had a linear headphone, then they could really hear what's on the record. As far as pro audio in general, I mean, there's different types of headphones for different types of things. There's for monitoring. I know drummers prefer headphones that have a really deep sub kick, so they can hear their kick drum. DJs use something that's completely different, as Alex said.
Actually, going to produce your engineer, like Frank, uses on towards PBS environment that needed something new.
So as far as production and engineering,
You're right, they translate.
they should be the same. That way, if an engineer has a linear headphone and that's what he's mastering on, that's what he's recording on, and then the consumer gets that same linear headphone or something that's similar, they will get the exact same experience the engineer wanted to deliver or the producer wanted to deliver to the listener. And that's what I think music should be, is a recreation of what happened in the studio, what happened live. And the only way you can get that is if both ends are using, a linear headphone. There is room for color. I do understand some people like to sweeten their music. There's tubes, there's colored headphones, that's fine. But I think the vast majority should really listen to linear headphones for that same reason.
I've got a question about that then. So the question is, what is neutral? And how do you guys know where neutral is?
The way I do it is simple. I have a good recorder that measures well, and I will record something in a room I know. Certain instruments I have, piano, cymbal, and a few other things I do, and I will record that, and I will play that back on my headphones. If it's indistinguishable to me from the recording to what I just heard, I know it's spot on. And that's trusting, my ears, that's also my experience, so I know what it should sound like in a particular room. That's why when I go to shows, such as this, I always carry around those tracks, and then people always ask me for copies of those. They want a reference track, and I say, you will not know what the reference is because you weren't there when it was recorded. So that's how I know if it's approaching, that linear sound or not. Whether you play a guitar here or you play it in the Himalayas, it's a guitar, you know what it's going to sound like. It shouldn't sound like a cello, it shouldn't sound like a bass guitar. That's my reference. My reference is always real life, but it's coming from something that I've recorded, from something I know extremely well. So that's always my reference.
I think Tile asked the question about philosophy, not science. Right? So, okay, when we discuss about what is neutral, I always think about when I have experience in Lincoln Center listening to the New York Philharmonic. If I sit in the second line, the most expensive seat there, normally $200, and they sound terrible because it's too noisy and the high frequency is so bright. I feel extremely bad on that. But if I sit in the line 20 or to 30, I feel it's very comfortable because actually that area, is neutral for me. However, if you do measurement in that area, you have 20 meter or 20 to 30 meter away from the instrument. The high frequency got roll off seriously. So how to define neutral is, is for different people will have their different standard. So, we think something people, some headphones or the speakers can reproduce the best location in Lincoln Center is the best headphones or the neutral headphones. It's not like linear response. Because even you talk about the linear response, you talk about the ears, right? The ears is not linear. When you hear something, the frequency curve in your ears, the high frequency got roll off very, very serious. So you cannot easily define which one is linear. For sure, as I know, neutral is not identical to the linear.
Dan?
So I actually am rather similar to what Louis does, which is I play flute, my wife plays piano, my daughter sings. And so I'm very familiar with the sound of playing music in our living room. And what I literally have done is made some recordings in the living room. And one of the tests I do is almost exactly the same as yours, which is I know where I set the mic to record. And when I play back, I listen to see if I can hear the shape of the room in the ambient reflections. And I learned that as a trick when I was just one day walking down a long hall in a house that I used to live in that had hard stone floors. And I noticed that as I was walking by, I could tell even when the door was shut, I could tell when I got to a door because the reverberation time off the wall changed just a tiny bit. And I could navigate through the house with my eyes shut once I did that. And I just kind of had fun doing that for a while. And so that's how I learned to do that for tuning. That voicing, you learn to extend it out in the highs and the lows. And if you can get it to do that reasonably well, I've found that if I'm running sweep tones and noise and other things, it all sounds about linear and fairly consistent. And I don't have a very peaky response. And if I got it wrong and the room sounds distorted or the geometry of the room is off or the tonality of the instruments is off, I can listen to sweeps and I know I'm going to hear a notch or a peak somewhere, and it's not going to be right. And so I disagree a little bit, which is that often the stuff that I measure as reasonably linear is what sounds most natural to me.
Yeah,
maybe that's
I guess as a reviewer too, Tal, a little bit. What I've always looked for in some of the products that I really, really enjoy myself, that I own, is tonality of the instrument. And a lot of what these gentlemen just said, it hit home. And isn't that what it's all about? We want to get the product to sound like we're listening to live music. I mean, isn't that what this whole hobby has been about? To get everything to get to the absolute of where we need to be? Right. Because
I want to expand on that. One thing I learned, because I know you've had experience, but I learned working under Rick Martin at Atlantic, producing arrangers, that once, and having been in live orchestral sessions with him on strings and arrangements, behind the console, once the instrument, once that sound enters the microphone, it's changed forever. The same. Shaking the absolute is a great idea, but one thing we always used to talk about is how he used to say to me, here's the man that has been making records as long as I've been alive, you know, when I went to work for RMRN. He said to me, the problem is, and he actually looked at me, the problem with audiophiles is we're not creating time capture devices. Music's meant to be enjoyed. So if it's enjoyable, like, you're never going to get back to here, meaning when you're sitting there in the studio. But if you can get enjoyment from the music, and if something can draw you in, right? I think that that's a huge part of it. And I think that planar, to me, comes from that world and the hi-fi world, that it's close to that experience as anything. Like just drawing you in emotively and with regards to realistic 3D level, dimensionality, air and space, tonality, you know, but really, we're chasing music. And for me, planar, they bring me closest to it.
Right.
Knowing that, because we taught me that, I'll never forget it.
Isn't that what we're all about, though, Tom? I mean, is getting the closest to the sound of the instrument as we could possibly get. I mean, you know, the bottom line, I want a Steinway to sound like a Steinway on a headphone.
I'm going to let Alex.
All right.
I think, yes, the bottom line is we want to be sitting in front of a band and enjoying them. That's the bottom line. As Mike says, once it's captured, it's captured into a character. So wherever that signal flow goes and ends up, whatever you're listening to from, with, it's going to have a signature. Bottom line is, yes, let's wipe those boundaries. But one thing that I think Headphone and just our community is listening to all the characters of each of the manufacturers is something I love. And I think that's why Planars, they show you what the different manufacturers can do as far as an amp, as far as a deck. It resolves it much better, so it kind of helps feed the hobby, if you will. I love hearing everybody's products and hearing their signatures on it. So
Right. Every
no matter-
designer has their own individual signature.
and I think that's something that's beautiful, and it's almost as important as the recording to me.
You know, and just listening to my friend Fong over here about talking about that with the classical sitting in the hall, classical music is important to him because on his new headphone, all right, the first thing that came out to me on the prototype that I heard with the HE560 was the violin. And I said, wow, I mean, he nailed it. It's as real as I've heard it. All right, and you know, and Alex said, you know, I've heard your bass. I mean, that's one of the greatest things on that. And Louis, I've heard you know, and Dan, you know, I'm a big fan. I mean, you know, I love your headphones, but everybody's got a different signature, and I guess a lot of it has to do with your personal preferences. What type of music is important to you,
It reflects the individual.
and reflects the personality. So, you know, Fong hit home when he said that about Symphony Hall, because the first thing that came when I was listening to the 560, and I'm a big classical musical freak, and I said, wow, these violins, I could hear the sections and the layering, and it was very close to what I would go and hear the Philadelphia Orchestra play. You know, so very proud of you, my friend, for doing that. And everybody here, this has been a terrific panel. I mean, you got 4 of the brightest and most creative individuals that I've seen that are really helping to change what this community is all about. And Todd, if you have some closing comments, I would appreciate it, because I'm told we got about 5 minutes and then the band wants to start playing. Whoever they are. You know, I don't see the band here. Is the band here?
I'm not. When I asked the question about neutrality, and Fong said it was a philosophical question, in the end, it really does boil down to that there is no way to objectively remove this and define and focus in on the objective experience. When Lewis says, I know it sounds exactly the same, there still exists in there his experience and his physiology and all sorts of factors that cause that statement, as objective as it sounds, to be totally subjective. And it's not, essentially not useful in terms of guiding technology. So in the end, what guides the technology and stuff like that is the subjective experience of people, which is never going to be identical between.
Right, everybody's different, everybody hears differently.
So, as a speaker designer, I was very used to thinking about how loudspeakers interact with rooms. And as a parting comment that directly relates to this, one of the things that's so interesting to me about headphone reality is that I had the epiphany like 2 years ago or 3 years ago that in a headphone, your room is this big. And everybody's room is radically differently shaped based on the size of your ears, the contour of your jawline, the clamping force of your headphone, how wide your head is, and what it's going to do to the pad geometry. And so you can have these like 20, 30%, 40% variations in structure and volume and internal reflection areas within, and so it's no wonder headphones sound different to people.
Great.
What's new?
If you'd like to say something?
I want to talk about the experiment that we did in our office. I had a set of very expensive audiophile in the office. It costs like a car. It's very expensive. So I think they sound perfect. So we brought several professors from Peking universities, the electrical engineer major, and we tell them that you can come to my office and do the measurement in my office, and then you use your coding to reproduce my room, my office room, and then you apply your coding into my headphones, and then let me hear the headphones. I want to exactly the same as room sound. However, I feel very, very disappointed because there are a lot of high frequency response, and which made the headphone sound really weird. So I just want to talk about this small experiment, and this is astonishing, and which is actually, make me feel. Before I think linear sound is important, but right now I lost my man after the experiment.
All right, guys, let's hear it, man. This very informative session today. 4 incredible people up here. My friend Kyle, the always colorful publisher of Inner Fidelity. I want to thank everybody. Let's give one final round of applause, and we have to. The band's going to start. So if you're interested in some entertainment, stick around.